The moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I'm going to do a lot of night letters say I shouldn't do. Not, in fairness, not a lot of night letters. I don't get a lot about this particular topic. I get about other things. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Whenever I mention, like somebody writes in and asks about something vaguely CG related, CG not being the computer generated thing. Oh, that'd be funny, right? But actually the Comicsgate. Whenever somebody writes a mail in and I answer it, I mentioned Comicsgate, I always get a handful of, quote unquote, night letters. What's baffling about it is I get it from two fronts. I get people going, you should never mention on that on our channel, or people are going to think you're one of the bad guys. And then I also get people who write in going, you shouldn't mention on your channel unless you invite blah, 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 these 18 names, because they will tell you what CG is actually like, and you should keep their name out of your mouth if you're not willing to. It's like, fuck me. Anyway, all of that crap. All of those mails. If you find yourself writing one of those mails, stop. Stop what you're doing right now. You're making a mistake. Go to a strip joint. Anyway, I wonder how those are doing post-COVID. I don't know. I'm sure they're doing just fine, actually. Anyway, but this is, I don't listen to a lot of videos. There's no time, and when I'm in a moment where I could listen to somebody else's video, I am recording a video. Like the mechanism of this show, which I've said before, but I don't know that it's sunk in to people, is I record. I'll drive around or I'll drive somewhere. My wife wants me to go pick something up at the grocery store that she needs. Okay, I can slam out one, maybe two videos on the way there, one, maybe two videos on the way back, which is what I do. It's 4 videos. I get home, I put them into a kind of a template that I've done. I'm telling you this because I don't want you walking away thinking that I'm doing a lot of heavy crafting and putting these videos together. I think that's obvious based on the visual and audio quality and the fact that I do zero editing. Every now and then I listen to somebody's video and they're like, you can tell they've edited. They've edited out like, I don't know, coughs or sneezes or things. And my policy is, this is a conversation with me and you. And if we were in real life, you'd be hearing me cough and sneeze if I do that. So fuck it. You get what you get. So there's no editing. Every now and then I've gone in and edited something, usually like to put in a K-pop clip in between something or do something stupid like that. And it's kind of funny. I don't know that it matters. This is the deal. I was not trying to get to, 5,000 subs, let alone where I am now. I'm not trying to get to 1 million subs. I'm not, Mark Rober, who's a whore for attention. No, I'm sure he's fine. Anyway, but I'm just doing my thing here. But every now and then I do listen to videos. And so one of them caught me because it was this Force is Female. So it was a video by Zach, who in the past I've mentioned Zach every now and then. Again, nobody's really mailed me about this in a long time, but I'll mention Zach because he says something, I'm commenting on it. And I'll get people like, ooh, I don't know, you shouldn't comment on him because he's one of... You could be great. People think you're a bad guy. Like shut the fuck up, okay? I'll comment on what I want. And if people say something that makes sense, I've got to acknowledge that, and that there's nothing wrong with that. For God's sake, it's stupid not to. And he makes good points, bluntly. So in this video, he's talking about the Force is Female, and he's talking about the case where there's this picture, and I'm sure a lot of you listening to this video have seen it, where Kathleen Kennedy is standing at what looks like some kind of event. She's got, like, if you look at the background, a bunch of people have, edited the photo to make it like transparent background so they can place it on a burning dumpster fire or something. But anyway, she's standing there and she's got a shirt that says the Force is Female. And this has become kind of the meme or visual icon for, irritation on the Star Wars franchise. And what he points out in that video is that, he heard that, from somebody, no idea who, that the Force is Female was the slogan for Nike Air Force for shoes. And why was Nike doing this? Well, because they were trying to initiate sponsorship, and they put some money into women's sports, mainly girls' sports, actually, not actually women. The idea was that we're going to encourage female girl people to get into health and activity and sports. Why is Nike doing this? Well, pretty easy. They sell shoes. Everybody needs shoes, and 50% of the population roughly is are women, girls, and so it's like I would like to sell my shoes to half the world. Okay, makes sense. Like this is not some kind of rocket science like deep fake. Like I've seen people theorize that like this is Nike trying to instill woke culture and everything. No, this is Nike trying to sell shoes to girls. For God's sake, I mean it's way easier than where a lot of people go to. I mean, so I've heard people say, well, they shouldn't say the force is female or whatever. They shouldn't say stuff like that. Well, again, it's a marketing slogan. They also say just do it. They say a lot of other dumb shit. So I mean, I understand the culture wars are all consuming, but some stuff is obviously people provoking, and some stuff is not. In this case, I think it's much more boring than people let on. But people are irritated with Kathleen Kennedy. Now, this comes the interesting point to this whole thing. And I actually should sum up what Zach had said about it. So Zach basically had said this was a big revelation to him because he felt like he had been led to believe for many years that it was all about Star Wars and it was about tweaking the fans. And in fairness, that's that's not a irrational thing to believe because several people in that franchise did tweak the fans. As much as I think the anger over Brie Larson was ridiculously overblown, it is true that she went out and said things like, that were dismissive and kind of fuck off to customers. She did do things like that. Not, again, did it matter in the grand scheme of things? Probably not. But, she tweaked fans. So did Ryan Johnson. So did others. So did Kevin Smith. People have said things that absolutely did, tweak and irritate fans. Now, in fairness, one thing that people don't have is there's not a lot of material of Kathleen Kennedy out there saying, well, fuck the fans. I don't want fans that are toxic. Or you don't have a lot of that from her because she's at her core a money person. She's a producer. So she just, that's her job. It's fairly dull and benign to a lot of sense where the money is concerned. But hold on to your keyboards for a second. I feel a lot of you like you have itchy fingers. You're ready to just jump in here and start throwing punches. But look at the facts as they are. But why are people irritated at Star Wars in particular and Kathleen Kennedy? Well, actually, pretty easy reason and pretty fair reason, which is under Disney and Kathleen Kennedy's stewardship, the movies have polarized the fan base. So I'm trying to say this in the most unemotional, not like just if this was Chat GPT writing back to you, that's what it sounded like. So there were some people that definitely liked Star Wars, the new ones, the Disney ones. The film was made up to and over $1 billion in some cases. That's not people who, that's not an indication that everything had collapsed. There were people who liked those movies. You'd be crazy to think that there weren't. But there are also people who really didn't like those movies, and several of those people were longer-term fans of Star Wars. That's why we've had these fights of, well, maybe it's not for you anymore or something. But it was at one point. It was for you at one point, and now it's not. And so generally, if you've got a big brand like Star Wars or like Star Trek or, it's something that has a lot of, years and years of history behind it, I would argue Marvel and DC Comics as well. You don't want to divide your fan base. You generally, and this isn't going to sound sexy or exciting, you want homogenized product. You want stuff that is generic-ish for everyone. Because if you irritate part of your fan base, you're basically reducing the pie from which you can draw money to. And Disney, and again, under Kennedy's stewardship, basically started putting out movies that sharply divided people. The question mark for everyone, and there's no way to answer it because, we'll never know, is, was that inevitable? I would say no. I think there's a different movie that would come out with a different kind of story, a different cast, and everything else that would have been more benign or more just appreciated. I think that was possible to do. I don't think it's impossible. I don't think every movie that comes out is going to divide people unless you walk this insane line of like, can't ever mention anything remotely political, and nobody can, the women need to have, this exact percentage of dialogue to the men. And like I don't, there's movies out there. I mean, I pointed out before, Super Mario Brothers had a girl boss, quote unquote, Peach, who was superior to Mario in training. Even throughout the entire movie, she was superior to him and what he did. And yet that movie didn't get, angry outrage and crazy takes. Why? Who knows? I'll speculate on that. I think I did at one point. But Kathleen Kennedy, in effect, divided the fan base. Now that's I think the generous, fair way to say it. Now, if you're part of the fan base that didn't like what she did, you would say she destroyed it, or she blew up, or made shitty movies, or all the rest. And that, when paired with this Force of Female shirt, became the meme basically for years, and it became 50 billion videos all saying Kathleen Kennedy was about to be fired that have been going on for the last, 6 years. Steady. All that's true. And fundamentally, if you look at, okay, what is Kathleen Kennedy's job? Was it to write the scripts of Star Wars? It was not. Was it to pick the people who are going to write the scripts of Star Wars? Sort of. Mostly. She had a lot of say in it, but she didn't do it alone. But definitely was probably the controlling voice in the room, or one of the strongest voices in the room. That is true. But this way, if Kathleen Kennedy really badly wanted somebody on a project, probably is going to happen. If she really didn't want somebody on a project, probably wasn't going to happen. So I think, is the dominant voice in a lot of this stuff. So anyway, Zach's point was, this shirt that everybody attached to Star Wars was, turned out to be about something completely different. He felt misled. He felt like it was kind of outrage bait that was used, and it was manipulative. And he is correct. It was. It absolutely was. We all care about context unless it's something that, that we believe in. And then we suddenly don't care about context. You go on Twitter right now, you'll see lots of people, basically punching journalists by adding context to wildly misleading stories. And I'm glad they're doing that. It's correct. You've seen AOC make batshit crazy, very political statements, and you see people putting community notes in to go, well, here's the context. That's actually not true. You see them do it to Biden and everything else. And you see a lot of people who are excited by this and like it. But context and the truth should cut all ways. So the context behind that picture was it had absolutely nothing to do with the Force, with Star Wars. It had to do with a Nike shoe brand. It happened, decently before a lot of all of this outrage even got started, like a year or two before. And that context matters because a lot of people who clipped and used that photo knew that it came from a Nike press event. Go, oh, she's doing Star Wars and the Force, so this nicely pairs, and they used it, but they knew they were combining two things that are not necessarily related. Now, it did make for an illustrative picture, and that's fine. It's good, but there's context to it. And this gets to the thing that, I took away from his video. He talked about YouTube poisoning. And I absolutely think that's true. I think people, it's a different form of an echo chamber. You can watch something and watch something and watch something, and then you just start to believe something is true. And we've seen tons of examples of that on the left and on the right. And I think, that's not going to stop. We could bitch about it and whine about it, but it's still going to happen. The thing that you want to, the hope that you get is that even though it still happens, people still inherently care about the truth. In this case, I think knowing that that photo was actually from something completely different, and that's the origin to it, I think is interesting. And I think it's worth knowing. And it's valuable to know that. And it does matter. It matters where this came from. Not because it erases the fact that, her core job was to produce, a massive franchise and grow the business. And I would argue, by polarizing the fan base, she's put that job in jeopardy. She's made her job much harder. And so but what cracked me up a little bit is I was looking at the comments of this thing that he did, and people are saying this is the comment that I think irritates the shit out of me. It's, oh, so this makes it all okay? What the fuck are you talking about? It's the truth. The truth is that photo, that picture, had nothing to do with Star Wars and came from something else. And that's information. That's data. That's the truth. You want to know the truth. I hope. It's better to know the context than not. Wouldn't you rather know what's going on rather than walk around with a false assumption? Wouldn't you? Like if you had to pick, you'd rather know than not know, wouldn't you? I hope so. Because the other path is insane. But knowing the truth doesn't mean, oh, so that makes everything else okay. What are you talking about makes everything else okay? No, it doesn't make everything else okay. Nobody said that. At no point in that video did he go, well, this shirt actually meant something completely different. It was interesting to learn that, and I realized I'd been manipulated by people using this shirt, and they portrayed a picture that wasn't true, but it was misleading. He did not say, and that means all the Star Wars movies are great, and everything she did was wonderful. What a wonderful person. I'm going to go out right now and buy a bunch of Star Wars merch because that's, I was wrong. I owe Kathleen Kennedy an apology. None of those things were said. No, it doesn't, quote unquote, make it okay to and erase the fact that the franchise has been polarized, and that's harmful to Disney. It is harmful. Why do you do that? To me, that's somebody who's got the YouTube poisoning and is doubling down. Basically, somebody who is being offered an antidote. This is the equivalent of the red pill, blue pill choice. You're like, I'll just take the blue pill and continue to live in the Matrix. I'm happy here. That's the crazy part. It's the person who, when shown like, hey, here's something you didn't know, now you are smarter. Isn't being smarter better? When somebody is presented with that, the poison that's in their body is so strong that they've got like truth antibodies that basically sit in there and go, I don't want to hear anything that changes this manipulative picture that I believed. To me, that's somebody who is cowardly, who lacks any kind of conviction, because I think it's 100% possible for any kind of grown, mature adult to go, I now know the truth. I'm still didn't like those movies. I still think she did a bad job producing those movies. And, this hurt the franchise, and that was a mistake. And, and in terms of if I was rating how effective she is at her job, I'd have to say poor, because a lot of damage was done. That's a mature, grown up way of looking at it. The people who went all in with, well, oh, look at him, now he's turned woke. What is hey, you should learn the truth woke? Is that the definition of woke now? We should challenge each other to know the truth behind things and to know the context behind things, because it makes us smarter. It makes our opinions stronger, quite frankly, than running around half-baked with a lot of thoughts. And so I think back about all the different things that have gone on over the years. The different arguments I've had with people around, why are people hired in comics? Why, this whole issue of overships, which still comes up. There was a post on a completely half-baked, retarded message board where, once again, they're like, Perch denies the fact that publishers force the retailers to pay for comics they can't sell. That's not true. It's been debunked 100 times. There is no well, but exception. It's just flat not true. It's a lie. The fact that it's a lie does not mean that the publishers are doing everything amazing. And so to all the people out there who struggle with this idea of, it's got to be the worst, most disgusting conspiracy, awful thing in the world, or everything is perfect and wonderful and we can't complain about it. Those are two insane positions. Insane. We live in a world. It's not just we can live in a world. We do live in a world where Kathleen Kennedy was given some kind of promotional shirt, put it on. By the way, the other thing that cracked me up is the people who go, well, you may be right. What do you mean may be right? He was right when he pointed out that it came from this slogan. Look, you can look this up easy. Literally, you can see the origin of this photo, the timestamp, where it came from, what she was doing, who she was with, the campaign that Nike was running at the time. You could see all of that. And if you want to do a little bit more work, you can throw the slogan in there and look to see if Disney ever sold the Force is Female shirts. But guess what? The answer is they didn't. Etsy does. Lots of other, homegrown people do. Disney didn't. Why? Because Nike trademarked the phrase. That's why. So it's better if we live in a world of truth, and context is helpful. And I know people believe that because, again, lots of you are happy when somebody like, Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or AOC, or Joe Biden, gets that context to some misleading, crazy shit that they say. Well, it goes for everything. It's always better to know the truth. Knowing the truth does not change anything about how you might feel about a property. I think Star Wars has been mishandled horribly. And I think as a huge billion-dollar franchise, it was put at risk for bad reasons. For quite frankly, you can give a million reasons. The core of it was the movies weren't good. The end. They still appealed to some people, made some money, but not as much money as they should have. The origin to a t-shirt doesn't change any of that, but it's still good to know the truth. Thanks for listening.